r/AskReddit. Redditors who clean up crime scenes. What's the most bizarre thing you've witnessed? Crime scene cleaner here. My first suicide cleanup was quite an experience. Man shot himself in the head in his garage. I'll never forget needing to use pliers to pull teeth and skull fragments out of the drywall behind where he sat, or that blood and brain managed to make its way more than 50 feet across the garage. Most disturbing though, was his pickup. We chose to take it to our company wash bay to pressure wash it and make sure it was as clean as possible. I cleaned it myself and was satisfied that I had done well. Inspected for blood and couldn't find anything, so I began driving it back to the owner's garage. On the way back a slight drizzle began and switched on the wiper blades. Imagine my horror as a chunk of brain streaks across my newly cleaned windshield. I pulled over quickly and cleaned it up, but it still makes me sick to think what would have happened if it didn't rain that day. This man's poor wife or daughter would have been met with that sight and been crushed again by the impact of suicide. That 10 years ago, and I'll never forget it. Now I triple or quadruple check every job. Wow, an actual crime scene cleaner. Didn't think I'd live to see the day. Most people are dying to meet them. Okay, here is another story that will always stick out. The entire residence was absolutely tossed, as if someone was looking for something. However, this wouldn't end up being a typical robbery turned homicide. This was about to be way more bizarre. We get the man into the bag, so crime scene can take their photos. In the nearby toilet, we discover even more blood. Possibly up to at least a third of this gentleman's entire volume of blood in the john. It was just around that exact moment where another patrol officer was perusing around the residence when he started to find random objects covered in fecal matter. Eventually, he found more objects with a mix of fecal matter and blood. It then hit us just exactly what we were dealing with: extreme violent sodomy with foreign objects. Most of the objects were reasonable, I suppose. Smaller objects resembling the phallic shape, TV remotes, things of that like. Well, 3 of the objects stuck out that were discovered are what make this story. The first was a broom. Sure, you think, kinda skinny, right? Can't be that bad. Well, it was the depth up the grip of it that we were concerned about. This man definitely had his bowel perforated by how deep this thing went. The second object of note was a baseball bat, the contact end of it. Again, pretty deep, but significantly wider in girth. The final and most standout of the objects was a guitar. A really nice Stratocaster too. The tuning end of a guitar. The tuning knobs were all covered in a thick paste of fecal matter and blood. This man had been sodomized to death. At autopsy, the findings were obvious. However, what I had to do was something I'll never forget. After the primary evisceration was complete, the doctor wanted to completely excise the rectum. So I had to don a chainmail glove and, after rolling this poor guy onto his side, press inside his abdominal cavity to press his rectum out towards his anus till the doctor could pull it taut enough to cut out. After she had his guy's rectum out, which resembled one of those jelly-filled toys that when you hold them, they kinda fall inside themselves and through your hands. My 80s/90s baby friends should recall these guys. We then cut lengthwise up it to unfold the rectal tissue into a large rectangle to see the extent of the internal lacerations. Needless to say, deep, extensive, and numerous. The assailants have been apprehended. So that's the story about how I had to cut out a guy's butthole for science, medicine, and law. TL. Doctor, man is murdered from being sodomized with the tuning end of a guitar. The people responsible have been caught. Edit. Thank you very much to whoever awarded me the platinum medal. It is a travesty that I had to acquire such a thing from sharing such a grotesque story, and I will see to it that my currency/coins, sorry kinda new to Reddit honestly, not too sure how this whole thing works, are given out to equally endearing folk sharing their experiences with the internet. Edit. Thank you very much for the silver and gold. Final edit. It appears I have actually mixed 2 different former cases into one. I have redacted any details that were not related to the guitar case. In that job, a lot of cases tend to blend together, especially when they are extremely similar. It was a while ago, so I got some of the specifics wrong. The post now only contains bits of the story that again are relevant to the guitar case, and all information contained within this post can be found publicly if you look hard enough. How often do you tell this story? I'm imagining a night out. Yo Bob, I ever tell ya I helped cut a dude's butthole out? I've got a ton. I used to do CSI work and was an autopsy tech, so I would both go to the scene, investigate, bring the body back to the morgue, and help with the autopsy. Anyways, this person murdered their spouse and stuffed the body into a fridge and buried it in the woods. When you have a body exposed to the element, you have normal decomposition to look forward to, such as insects, bloating/gases, skin coming off, bones showing, etc. Once you've seen a few, then you know that this kind of decomp/state of body is normal, and you know what to expect. There are varying levels of stuff you deal with, but it's all within an expected spectrum of the job. Hope that makes sense. However, in this case, this person was sealed in, so you didn't have any of that. They were essentially stewing in there for almost a year, might have been longer. I don't remember the exact time. I wasn't there on scene when they found the person, only in the morgue to help with the autopsy. So I prep the room, doctor comes in, and I pull out the body from the fridge and wheel them into where we do the actual autopsy. Opened the bag, and oh my point god. The smell. I'll never ever forget the smell. I've dealt with bodies in various stages of death and decomposition, but holy shit, this was on 10 other levels. Now the morgue has HVAC, air filter/fresheners, and all that, but they weren't effective at all for the smell. It was so bad I gagged, which I've never done before, and almost threw up in my mask. The doctor was struggling too. The doc double backed and almost looked like they were gonna faint. It was the purest, worst, most concentrated, extremely pungent ammonia smell you could think of. I had never smelled anything like that in my career at that point. If wine ages well, and is better with time, this ammonia smell did the exact opposite, and it was somewhere worse than anything you could think of. The smell stuck to us too, on our skin, for about a week. No matter how hard I scrubbed, I can still smell it, if I think about it. The texture of the body didn't help either. It was so slippery and wet that flecks of the ammonia fluid splashed onto my skin. The long gloves went up to my forearm, not all the way to my scrubs. It was the worst autopsy of my life. It took about 3 hours because we kept having to take breaks, and it was a difficult body to work on due to how fragile it was. It beat out everything else I saw, from the crazy accident fatalities, the interesting suicides, to even the person who had half their face eaten by rats and half their body covered in a sea of maggots and insects. Edit. Thanks for the gold. Also, RIP in barks, pun intended.